Hi, I'm Maura. Ever given everything you had to family, only to watch them rewrite the story without you in it? I used $1 million of my own savings to rescue my parents' company. I thought that meant I mattered. I thought it meant I belonged. But then, I found out I was cut from the will, not reduced, erased. Worse, my dad still asked for more. And what they did next, how they twisted my name, my past, even dragged in the man I once loved. How do you fight a family that built its power on your silence? And what happens when you finally speak? Let me tell you what happened to me. The scent of rosemary hit me the moment I stepped onto the porch. Mom was in the backyard, kneeling by her herb garden, her sun hat tilted low over her brow like she was pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. I hadn't planned to stay long, just drop off a stack of tax files I'd helped organize for their business. It was a quiet Wednesday morning, and I had calls lined up with 2 corporate clients later that afternoon. "Maura," she called without looking up. "Be a dear and check the safe in the den. Your dad needs something for the CPA. Something about last year's deductions." I nodded, brushing invisible dust off my blazer. Sure. Inside, the house looked almost identical to how it did 20 years ago. Same peach walls, same framed needlepoints, same sound of my dad's voice carrying from the study, deep and practiced as if he was still trying to impress someone. I passed by the French doors and gave him a polite wave. He didn't look up, too engrossed in whatever video meeting he was hosting. I headed straight to the den, kneeling in front of the built-in cabinet where they kept the safe. The keypad hadn't changed either. 0419, Darla's birthday. Once inside, I pulled out the usual stack. Warranty papers, insurance docs, a few old checkbooks. But one folder stood out. Burgundy leatherette, stamped estate plan, in gold. I hesitated. I didn't open it out of curiosity. At least, that's what I told myself later. I just wanted to make sure they hadn't forgotten to sign something important. But by page 3, my stomach tightened. It wasn't the legal jargon that rattled me. It was the clear and deliberate absence. My name didn't appear. Not under real estate assets, not under business succession, not under personal items. Every line, house, company shares, savings, even Mom's antique ring collection, was assigned to one name, Darla Ann Whitmore. Not a single mention of me, not even a token percentage, just a general statement in the final paragraph. We love both our daughters and trust they will understand our intentions. My jaw locked, my pulse thudded in my ears. The door creaked behind me. Mom walked in, carrying a small watering can, eyes flicking toward the open folder in my hands. She paused, feigning a casual smile. "Oh, that," she said lightly, brushing dirt from her fingers. "You know your father thought it was best this way. You're doing well, Maura. Darla, she still needs support." I closed the folder, the weight of it like bricks in my hands. "So doing well means I'm not family anymore?" She blinked, as if the question itself was rude. "Don't be dramatic, you know what I mean?" "I actually don't." Dad appeared then, stepping in like it was all perfectly timed. No knock, no pause. Just that damn mug of coffee he always carried like it made him important. "Sweetheart," he said, like he was trying to calm a client. "There's no need for this tone. You're stable. You've built your own life. Darla's still figuring things out." I laughed, sharp, short, without humor. "She's 37, still bounces between projects, still doesn't pay her credit card bill on time, still thinks being an influencer is a career plan. But sure, let's hand her everything." Dad frowned, voice lowering. "That's not fair." I stood up slowly. "You're right, it's not. What's unfair is me covering payroll back in 2019 so you didn't have to declare bankruptcy. What's unfair is me pulling $1 million from my own portfolio so this house, this business, could stay afloat while she was off doing yoga retreats in Sedona." Mom placed a hand on my forearm. "We just want her to feel secure." "And me? You're already secure." There it was, final, clean, convenient. I looked between them. Neither said another word, not a flicker of regret in their expressions. I slid the folder back into the safe and locked it. "If I'm not worthy of your legacy, don't expect me to keep cleaning up your mistakes." I turned without another word and walked out, past the garden, past the familiar creak of the wooden porch step, past the damn rosemary. No one followed. I sat in my car for a long while, gripping the steering wheel. Not angry, not yet, just hollow, like someone had opened me up and removed something essential. Not grief, not sadness, just a void. A void with names I thought I could still trust. The air in my car was still, thick like wool. I hadn't started the engine yet. Instead, I sat motionless, my hands still resting on the wheel, my eyes fixed on the windshield, though I wasn't really seeing anything. The whole world outside blurred into the lines of my own reflection, faint, quiet, hollow. I didn't drive straight home. I took the long way, past downtown, circled the lake twice, then pulled into the parking lot of a quiet coffee shop I used to visit years ago when I was still paying down my grad school debt. Back when life felt like a climb, not a betrayal. I grabbed a seat in the far corner, back against the wall, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my saved files until I found the folder marked 2019 Emergency Transfers. The timestamp on the first wire, October 2nd, 2019, $400,000, followed by another 3 transactions over the next month. Altogether, $1 million drained from accounts I'd built with my own sweat and sleepless nights. My chest ached, not with regret, but with recognition. That money had kept their company alive. That sacrifice had kept their home from foreclosure. And now, I was the one written out. 5 years ago, everything unraveled at once. I still remember Dad calling me at 6:13 a.m., voice shaking for the first time I could recall. "Maura, the Canyon Ridge project, it's falling apart. The investors are threatening a lawsuit. We're not going to make payroll." I'd just landed a new client, had a second-round interview with a firm in Seattle, and was considering moving in with Ryan, my boyfriend at the time. Instead, I flew to Austin that night. I skipped the Seattle trip. I met with the family's accountant. I pored over spreadsheets for 72 hours straight and realized that without immediate funding, the company would collapse by the end of the quarter. Darla, of course, was nowhere to be found. When I asked Mom about her, she said Darla had gone off-grid for a yoga cleanse retreat in Arizona. "She's too fragile right now," Mom whispered. "This kind of stress breaks her." And me? I wasn't allowed to break. I cashed out half my portfolio, took the tax hit, and transferred the first amount within a week. The second followed 10 days later. Dad promised everything would be repaid. "You'll be on the board, full ownership stake. We'll rewrite everything. You have my word, sweetheart." I didn't ask for a contract. That's the part that keeps haunting me. I trusted them. Not because they were good with their word, but because they were my parents. Because I believed family didn't need paperwork. I stayed for 3 more months, helping them restructure debt, freeze unnecessary spending, and settle with the Canyon Ridge lawsuit. We survived the collapse, but I was never added to the board. And the will? Well, now I knew exactly where I stood. Back then, Mom hugged me in the kitchen, tight and tearful. "We'll never forget what you did for us," she said. Turns out they forgot faster than I could have imagined. I left the coffee shop just before sundown. I couldn't sit still anymore. On the drive home, I passed the intersection where Ryan had once waited for me with flowers and 2 one-way tickets to Seattle. I told him I needed more time, that my family needed me. 3 months later, he was gone. He didn't leave because I said no. He left because he saw what I didn't. I wasn't just helping my family. I was being consumed by them. Used, quietly and efficiently, like a line of credit they never planned to pay off. Back at my apartment, I dropped my purse on the chair and walked straight to my home office. I opened my laptop, logged into my secure storage, and pulled every email, every transfer confirmation, every contract I drafted for them. I created a new folder on my desktop, named it Proof, just in case. I clicked and dragged the files one by one, the confirmation codes, the scanned checks, the email from Dad with the subject line, "Urgent cash injection needed, trust you." I stopped at one final file, a voice memo I'd saved without telling anyone. It was a recording of a call from November 2019. I hit play. Dad's voice crackled through the speaker. "Don't worry, Maura. When the dust settles, you'll have just as much claim to this company as Darla. Hell, probably more. We know who really saved it." I stared at the screen. My own voice in that clip sounded hopeful. I clicked save, backed it all up to the cloud, then again to a separate flash drive I kept in my locked drawer. This time, I wasn't going to beg for acknowledgement. I wasn't going to ask for fairness or chase validation from people who saw me only as a resource. I stood up from the desk, my fingers trailing the edge of the wooden surface. "This time," I whispered, "I won't be silent." I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I planned. By the time the sky outside dimmed into that soft orange haze only early spring in Texas could paint, I was already knee-deep in spreadsheets. I hadn't eaten dinner. I barely remembered making coffee, but once the adrenaline set in, I didn't need anything else. I logged into the old shared accounting portal, the one I used to access when I helped clean up the books during the Canyon Ridge collapse. Dad had never changed the credentials, probably didn't remember they were still active. The dashboard took a minute to load, and as I waited, I tapped my fingers against the desk, each beat steady like a countdown. When it finally opened, I scanned for the quarter ending December 2019. Everything looked clean. Too clean. That's the thing about cooked numbers. They're never messy. They're symmetrical, tidy, convenient. I opened the general ledger, cross-referenced expense accounts, and paused at a line item labeled Consulting External Services. It had never shown up in the summaries I reviewed before. $22,500 paid monthly like clockwork. I dug deeper. The payment started in late 2018 and ran through mid-2021. Each invoice tied to a Nevada-based firm I'd never heard of, Cornell Strategic Holdings. It rang zero bells. No website, no LinkedIn presence, but something about the name scratched at the edges of my memory. I opened the invoice attachments and saw generic service descriptions: operational planning, digital transformation oversight, confidential advisement, corporate buzzwords for nothing. I traced the bank transfers, all routed through intermediary accounts, and eventually landing in a holding company based out of Reno. I cross-checked the filing documents through a public records site, and then I froze. Owner: Denton Graves. The cursor hovered for a moment like even the computer wasn't sure what to do next. I leaned back in my chair, trying to steady my breath. Denton wasn't just some shadow name. He was my ex. My ex who used to work as the firm's in-house financial analyst. My ex who I trusted enough to give login access to when he was helping consolidate vendor contracts. The same man who sat across from me 3 Christmases ago and told me I was too loyal for my own good. Now his name was on invoices I never approved, listed as the beneficiary of funds that were rerouted while I was hemorrhaging my own savings, trying to save a company that had already been gutted from the inside. I wasn't stupid. This wasn't just bad judgment. This was collusion. He and Darla had been covering for each other. The timeline was too clean. The withdrawals matched the very weeks I was authorizing wire transfers into the business account. While I was patching holes, they were drilling more beneath my feet. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was personal. It was coordinated, and it had a signature. I pulled open my drawer and yanked out a yellow legal pad. I started building a timeline. October 2018, first transfer to Cornell. January 2019, Denton travels to Vegas for a conference. March 2019, Darla is sick, skips 3 board meetings. June 2019, I pay the firm's outstanding $180K debt. By the end of the night, I had over $480,000 in routed payments accounted for. Every one of them tucked neatly under Darla's authorization, with Leonard co-signing as CEO. It wasn't negligence, it was fraud hidden under the guise of family. I stared at the name one more time. Denton Graves, the man who once told me, "You're the only one who really gets how money works." Guess I wasn't the only one after all. Around midnight, I exported every document into a single PDF, encrypted it, and emailed a backup to myself. Then I copied the file to the same flash drive in my desk. I sat there in silence, my eyes burning from the screen, but my mind clear. I hadn't wanted a war. I hadn't gone looking for a fight, but I wasn't going to let them bury me under a lie they'd all built together. I picked up my phone and stared at the contact list. I scrolled past family, past old friends, until I landed on a name I hadn't called in years: Clara Voss. Back when I did legal work for the Finley Group, Clara had been our most ruthless compliance advisor. Smart, discreet, relentless. If anyone could help me unravel this mess and do it surgically, it was her. I didn't press call, not yet. But I saved the number to my favorites, because now I wasn't just gathering receipts. I was tracing rot. And I'd found where it started. The fraud didn't begin with some bad deal or market downturn. It began when family stopped treating me like one of their own. The following evening, just as I'd started closing out the day's work and reviewing Clara's initial reply, short, sharp, and requesting a full evidence dump, the phone buzzed. I stared at the screen a second too long. Mom. For a moment, I debated letting it ring out. I didn't owe her anything, not even my time, but something in me wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with now. I tapped accept and waited for her voice. "Hi, honey," she said, soft and sweet like nothing had happened. I didn't answer. She cleared her throat. "I hate to call like this, I really do, but something's come up. We're short on one of our supplier payments. It's just $6,000. If we miss it, it delays the shipment for 2 weeks, and we've already been skating on thin ice with this contractor." I blinked. "Just $6,000? My voice came out colder than I intended. "Ask Darla." There was a pause, then a breathy, uncomfortable laugh. She's a little overwhelmed right now. Too much on her plate. You know how she gets." "No," I snapped. "I don't, because I was also overwhelmed. When I pulled $1 million out of my accounts to cover the payroll you failed to manage. When I worked overnight to prevent your doors from being padlocked by the state. But you didn't seem worried about how I get." "Maura, please don't bring up old stuff," she said quickly. "You always make everything so heavy. We're asking for help, that's all. As family." That word again. Family. Their favorite shield. "I'm not your emergency fund anymore," I said. "You made that perfectly clear when you cut me out of your will and handed everything to someone who can't manage a grocery list without texting you 3 times. There was a sharp inhale on her end. "That's not fair." "You're right," I cut her off. "None of this is fair. But it's the truth." And before she could wind into another guilt-laced monologue, I hung up. My heart was thudding so loud it felt like it echoed through my jaw. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, letting the silence stretch. Then I went back to my desk, clicked open my encrypted folder, and added a new document. Call log Charlene, requesting funds, March 23rd. I wasn't playing nice anymore. I was documenting. The next morning, I brewed my coffee early, even before checking the newsfeed. An alert pinged on my phone. New message, group thread. I opened it, instantly recognizing Leonard's passive-aggressive signature at the bottom. The subject line, "Family shouldn't break over misunderstandings." The message wasn't long, but every word was carefully crafted like a PR statement, masked as an olive branch. It pains me to see how fractured things have become. We all make mistakes. But letting one misunderstanding unravel years of love, support, and hard work, that's not how family endures. Let's come back together. Let's talk without judgment. Buried between the lines wasn't regret. It was manipulation. There was no mention of Darla, no mention of the will, no mention of the 6-figure theft or the fact that they'd chosen to delete me from the future they built with money I'd handed over. Just that tone I'd come to recognize like the hum of a broken light bulb, emotional blackmail masquerading as peacekeeping. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the entire email, headers, timestamps, all of it, to Clara. My accompanying note was brief. This is how they've always cleaned up their mess, with guilt and nice words. I sat on my couch afterward, laptop balanced on my knees. For once, I didn't feel shaky. I didn't second guess. I didn't wonder if I was being too harsh or acting too fast. They weren't reaching out to apologize. They weren't asking what I needed. They were pressing to maintain control. Keep the narrative soft. Keep me quiet. I pulled out a fresh page from my journal, one I hadn't opened in months, and wrote across the top in black pen. March 24th, the day I stopped explaining myself. Below that, I began listing, not dollar amounts, but things they still owed me. Respect, honesty, accountability. My name on the company board. An apology that actually sounds like one. My father admitting he knew what Denton was doing. My mother telling Darla to carry her own weight for once. Space, silence, distance. When I got to the 10th line, I stopped. Not because the list was complete, but because the anger had finally settled into clarity. They weren't asking for help. They were testing the waters, seeing if I'd softened, seeing if I'd forget. I muttered aloud, pen still in hand. They were warned. And then, quietly but firmly, as if saying it aloud made it law. This isn't silence. It's patience. By Friday morning, my list sat untouched on the kitchen counter. I hadn't added to it. I didn't need to. The silence from my family in the days since Mom's favor call had already told me everything. At 9:47 a.m., my laptop pinged. A calendar notification popped up on the screen. Board status review urgent, sent by Darla Whitmore. No greeting, no explanation. Just a cold block of text with a Zoom link and a time, 10:30 sharp. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether to ignore it. But curiosity got the better of me. They weren't done. Whatever this was, it wasn't random. And I was done being caught off guard. By 10:25, I had my laptop docked and screen shared. I joined with camera off, mic muted. The digital boardroom lit up with familiar faces. Leonard, seated in the corner of his office, arms crossed like a disinterested judge. Two external board members, Rhonda Stone and Alan Cho, both stiff and unreadable. And finally, Darla, lips glossed and composed like she was prepping for a TED Talk. Thanks everyone for joining on short notice, Darla began, voice smooth and managerial. We're here to quickly address some of the Q1 inconsistencies and highlight areas of concern moving forward. I stayed silent, waiting. She clicked to a slide that read, 2019-2020, Legacy, Financial Data, Gaps, and Risk. We've encountered discrepancies in our historical reports, she continued, specifically in the expense filings during the restructuring period. Some entries remain unclassified, and others were filed without supporting memos or consistent categorization. Unfortunately, these records date back to when outside support was managing our books. She didn't say my name, but her eyes flicked to the camera, and everyone knew who she meant. Leonard leaned forward slightly. Just to clarify, that period was during the time Maura was assisting pro bono, yes? Rhonda's lips tightened. Alan simply nodded. The implication was clear. I had made the mess. I had jeopardized the company's current status. I unmuted my mic and clicked my camera on. Darla's eyes widened for half a beat. Hi, I said coolly. Before we go further into hypotheticals and historical distortion, would anyone like to see the receipts? No one replied. I clicked to share my screen. A folder labeled Cornell Transfers Confirmed opened. Line by line, PDF by PDF, I walked them through the consulting invoices, the authorized payments, the co-signed approvals, all dated, signed, and verifiable. I zoomed in on one particularly damning entry. March 7th, 2020, I said. $17,400 routed through Cornell Strategic Holdings, authorized by Darla Whitmore, with Leonard Whitmore copied on the final bank instruction. Silence. And for clarity's sake, I continued, you will not find my name, my login, or my approval on any of these. I was not acting as your CFO. I was your emergency donor. Leonard shifted in his chair. Darla's mouth opened, then shut again. I ended the share screen and folded my arms, implying I was responsible for poor financial handling, when in reality I funded the recovery while others rerouted company funds through ghost entities. Well, that's slander. And worse, it's stupid. Rhonda finally cleared her throat. Maura, if you feel there's been a misunderstanding— Oh, I don't, I said. I think I see everything perfectly now. I left the call. Clean break, no goodbye. 15 minutes later, I composed an email. Subject, defamation boundaries to all board members. Please consider this official notice. Any further implication of my involvement in mismanaged funds or misrepresented accounts during my voluntary support period will result in legal proceedings. I have records of every transaction, including those that occurred without my knowledge but under your oversight. Govern yourselves accordingly. Maura Whitmore. I CC'd Clara. Attached the same file set I'd shown on screen. Then I closed my laptop and leaned back. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't second-guessing. I didn't wonder what they'd think of me, because this wasn't about being liked. This was about drawing the line, publicly, sharply, and with no room for confusion. They had poked the wrong ghost. I didn't sleep much that weekend, not because I was nervous, but because I was focused. Saturday night, I turned my living room into a war room. Financial printouts covered the coffee table. My laptop screen glowed under dim lighting, tabs open across records, audio files, and one blank browser window just waiting to be used. At 2:14 a.m., I created a new Medium account under the name W. Whitmore Anonymous. The title came to me without hesitation: How $1 million Bought Silence in a Family That Still Wanted More. I didn't hold back. I wrote everything: clean, chronological, factual. I included transaction records, time-stamped emails, and a redacted scan of the will that excluded me. I even uploaded a screenshot of the transfer to Cornell Holdings, highlighting Darla's digital signature and Leonard's final approval stamp. No opinions, just truth, cold and organized. The final line of the post read, "This isn't revenge, this is record-keeping, because if your name is going to be erased, at least let it echo before it disappears." I hit publish at 4:37 a.m., then walked outside barefoot and stood under the stars for 5 full minutes. By the time I woke up late Sunday morning, my phone had exploded. Hundreds of views, thousands of reads. Then local buzz. A legal forum on Reddit picked it up. Then a few former firm employees shared the link. The hashtags started rolling in by Sunday afternoon. #family fraud, #whistleblown by blood, #she paid they played. I didn't say a word. Didn't post a follow-up. Didn't comment. But my inbox filled quickly. We always suspected Darla was funneling money, but no one wanted to accuse Leonard's daughter. I left that company in 2020 after my paycheck bounced. You saved them, Maura. You deserve better. I'm proud of you. You're saying what so many of us were too scared to. It was surreal, being believed in public when I hadn't even been acknowledged in private. But the best part wasn't the support, it was the panic on the other side. By Monday morning, a cease and desist letter arrived in my inbox, drafted hastily, addressed formally, and signed, predictably, by Leonard. It was a joke, barely veiled behind legal language. Words like libel, reputational harm, and private family affairs thrown around as if truth could be copyrighted. I sent it to Clara. Her response came in 3 words: "Let them try." Darla, meanwhile, took a more performative approach. She posted a filtered selfie on Instagram, captioned with something vague like, "Cutting ties with toxic energy is self-care." And then, in the comments, "Family isn't always blood, sometimes it's trauma." It had all the emotional range of a pre-printed greeting card, but it played well with her influencer following. A few of her yoga friends commented with heart emojis and, "Stay strong, queen." It was laughable. And then Mom called. I ignored the first attempt, and the second. But by the 3rd call that evening, I picked up, not because I owed her the grace, but because I wanted to hear what version of the story she was spinning now. "Maura," her voice cracked as if she'd been crying or trying to sound like she had. "Do you understand what you've done?" "Yes," I replied. "Do you?" "We can't survive this," she whispered. "Your father's blood pressure has been sky high. He's not sleeping. Darla's barely holding it together." "And I was supposed to?" I asked. "When I was draining my savings to keep the business afloat? When you erased me from your will?" "This isn't how families fix things." "No," I said flatly. "It's how families bury things. And I'm done being the dirt you shovel over it." She went silent. Then that old line. "Think about your father's health, Maura. You know how stress affects him." I almost laughed. If he cared about his health, maybe he shouldn't have spent years co-signing theft while watching me work double shifts to cover his mistakes. I hung up without waiting for a reply. That night, I backed everything up to a legal archive system Clara recommended. I uploaded every document, every call recording, and even a few old board presentations with Darla's initials plastered across line items she now claimed ignorance about. Then I sent the entire file package to Open Matter, a nonprofit media watchdog I'd followed since college. It wasn't a leak, it was accountability. Truth with timestamps. The email I attached read, "You're welcome to vet every page. This isn't a family squabble. It's a financial shell game built on the back of someone they tried to erase." I ended with a quote I'd written in my notes weeks earlier. "If they want war, I want it documented. I turned off the lights, shut my laptop, and let silence settle over the room. But this time, it wasn't the silence of surrender. It was the calm before the next reckoning. 2 days after I published the post, they struck. I was standing in line at a small grocery store, grabbing coffee and protein bars, when my phone buzzed with a text from Talia, an old colleague from the Finley group. "Maura, just heard Leonard on the Ledger Hour podcast. You need to listen. Like, now." I froze. Back in my car, I pulled up the episode. The host introduced Leonard like he was some kind of weathered hero, a longtime businessman navigating family challenges with grace. Then Leonard's voice came on, soft, composed, grandfatherly. "There's been a lot of noise lately," he said. "Unfortunately, some people with unresolved issues and fragile emotional states have chosen to distort our family's story." He never said my name. He didn't have to. The host chuckled. "That sounds incredibly difficult, especially with someone close." Leonard's response? "We love her. We've always tried to support her. But sometimes, no matter how much you give, it's never enough for someone who carries unresolved pain." I nearly dropped my phone. Backhanded, strategic, and absolutely disgusting. Later that afternoon, Darla decided to play her part too. On Instagram, she uploaded a string of story slides, all in muted beige tones with soft piano music playing. "The hardest part of trauma," she wrote, "is when the person who causes it insists they're the victim. Screenshots can be edited. Motives matter. Mental illness is real. Be kind." She even added a poll. "Should I speak my truth?" With the options, yes, protect your peace, and no, stay classy. It was cartoonish, but I knew her followers wouldn't care about facts. They cared about vibes. And Darla, as always, knew how to curate a vibe. Still, I could have brushed it off if it had ended there. But then came the worst blow. Denton. He and I hadn't spoken in years, not since we split after I refused to co-sign a real estate deal he called visionary and I called financial suicide. We hadn't even crossed paths in court, though I knew he was still doing accounting work, mostly consulting now. But that day, he posted a public message on LinkedIn of all places. When family matters spill into public view, it's painful for everyone, especially when narratives are shaped by personal grievances, not facts. I worked closely with the Whitmore firm for years. Darla is one of the most transparent, resilient professionals I've met. Accusations floating around now are deeply skewed and ignore key context. Then the kicker. As someone who has seen both sides, I can say some parties may be struggling with unresolved conflicts and projection. I hope they get the help they need. Projection? Help. He was saying I was unstable. Coming from the man who helped launder nearly $500,000, it was almost comedic. But I wasn't laughing. I sat at my kitchen table, heart slamming against my ribs, rereading his post while rage simmered so hot I could barely think. My phone buzzed again, another message from a former co-worker. "Saw what Denton posted. I'm so sorry. He always played both sides. We believe you." But belief didn't fix the betrayal. I stood up too fast, the chair scraping across the tile floor, and grabbed the nearest plate from the drying rack. It shattered against the kitchen wall before I even realized I'd thrown it. Shards sparkled in the evening light, scattered across the tile like pieces of the person I used to be. Quiet, composed, careful. Not anymore. I pressed my forehead against the fridge and closed my eyes. The weight was real now, not just emotional, but reputational. They weren't just trying to discredit my story, they were trying to burn down everything I'd built to tell it. But life, funny enough, knows when to throw a curveball back. Because that same night, at 11:42 p.m., a message arrived in my inbox from a Gmail I didn't recognize. Subject: Payroll ghosting Whitmore files. No greeting, no sign-off, just one sentence. Check Darla's signature on the 2019 Q4 payroll entries, compare to Denton's. You'll find they signed off on hours billed to employees who didn't exist. Attached, 6 PDF files. Payroll summaries, fake names, time cards logged by contractors with no social security numbers. All tied to accounts funneled through the very same Nevada holding firm. The sender remained anonymous, but the metadata was clean. Someone on the inside. Someone who had seen it all and finally snapped. I downloaded every file and dropped them into the legal folder Clara and I had been building. Then I opened a video call with her. When her face popped up, I didn't say hello. I said, "They faked payroll. They used ghost employees." Her lips parted in silence. I continued, "I have the documents, all of it, with signatures." She nodded slowly. "Maura, this changes everything." I looked at myself in the tiny video square. Hair messy, eyes bloodshot, a healing cut from where I'd grazed my hand on broken porcelain. But my voice? Steady, low, final. "They wanted a war," I said. "Now it's official." The following morning, sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds like it hadn't dared do all weekend. I sat with black coffee, no milk, no sugar, just the bitterness I needed to match the task ahead. Clara met me at her downtown office, her heels clicking like a gavel against the marble floor. She didn't smile when she saw me. She didn't need to. We reviewed everything: emails, bank records, that whistleblower PDF dump. She flagged 3 areas immediately: fraud, negligence, and defamation. Then she pulled out a thick folder and slid it across the table toward me. "This is the motion," she said. "Once you sign, we're all in." My fingers hovered over the pen. I wasn't scared. I wasn't hesitant. I was tired of fighting invisible wars. I signed. By noon, the formal complaint was filed with the District Civil Court. Maura Whitmore versus Whitmore Construction Inc. and associated board members. We submitted the whistleblower files to the state attorney's office. Clara had connections. They didn't go unnoticed. 3 days later, subpoenas were issued to Darla and Leonard. The IRS opened an inquiry into the firm's past 3 years of tax returns. I received an email from Clyde, the former operations director who resigned quietly last year, saying he'd seen discrepancies in payroll back in 2020. He attached a sworn statement, notarized and time-stamped. He ended it with, "I'm sorry it took me this long." By Friday, it hit the news. I didn't speak to the press right away. I let the filings speak first. Then came the pre-recorded interview with KTEX News. The studio lights were hot, the camera guy smelled like cheap cologne, and the producer asked me 3 times if I was sure I wanted to go on record against my own family. I said, they stopped being family when they turned my loyalty into liability. When the camera rolled, I kept my voice measured, my hands still. "White-collar crime thrives in silence," I said, "especially when it's protected by family names and Sunday dinners. But silence is not the same as peace. And some of us paid too high a price just to keep the lights on." The interview aired that night at 8 p.m. sharp. It was shared 6,000 times within the hour. That weekend, reporters parked outside my building. I ignored them. Former employees started emailing me, people who had been laid off, bullied, written up for imaginary mistakes. One wrote, "We always wondered why Darla got promoted so fast." Another said, "They told us you'd abandoned the company. Glad to know the truth." On Monday morning, Judge Elena Ruiz issued an emergency freeze on the firm's primary assets. No transfers, no bonuses, no golden parachutes. That same hour, Darla was suspended from her executive role pending review. Leonard posted bail on an unrelated tax evasion charge. He left the courthouse wearing sunglasses and a golf hat like it was a game. But I wasn't playing anymore. As I walked up the courthouse steps for my deposition, they were coming down. Leonard didn't look at me. Darla tried to. She opened her mouth like she had something rehearsed. I didn't stop to hear it. I walked past them like I'd never met them. Not because I hated them, but because they made the choice to treat me like a stranger. And I finally believed them. That evening, I sat alone on my balcony, watching the wind push the clouds westward. It was quiet, not hollow this time, just clean. I opened my laptop and began drafting a formal victim impact statement. Not because I needed pity, but because the truth needed a record. They built that house with stolen bricks. Now it's crumbling, and I won't be there to save it. 1 month later, the dust had stopped swirling, but the air never quite settled. The court order held. Leonard officially resigned from all corporate roles, citing health concerns, though everyone knew it was an audit breathing down his neck, not a doctor's report. His name vanished from the website, from the press releases, from the firm's letterhead, but not from my memory. That stain runs deep. Darla, on the other hand, just disappeared. No statement, no apology, not even a goodbye post. Her influencer accounts went dark. Last I heard, she booked a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Probably thought she could namaste her way out of accountability. And then there was Charlene. The envelope was cream-colored. No return address. Handwritten. I knew the loops of her cursive before I even opened it. But I didn't. I slid it into my drawer, right next to the medical receipts I'd covered for Dad's heart medications, and the tuition invoice I once paid so Darla could finish her entrepreneurial development course. Reconciliation in cursive meant nothing without accountability in ink. I had no intention of feeding that illusion again. Instead, I put my time where it could matter, where silence hadn't taken root like rot. I started something new, small, focused, an advisory group for professionals like me, people burned by family-run companies, people who gave too much and got labeled ungrateful for daring to want boundaries. The first meeting had 4 of us. By the third, we were 23, and then came the invite that stopped me cold. TEDx Texas, would you be interested in sharing your story? At first, I stared at the email like it had landed in the wrong inbox. Me? Talk about this? Publicly? But then I remembered the silence that tried to strangle me, and how close it had come to winning. So I said yes. The event was held in a repurposed school auditorium in San Marcos. Nothing flashy, folding chairs, chalkboard signs. But when I stepped on stage, under that single warm light, something cracked loose inside me. The talk was called, "When Your Family Becomes the Fraud." I didn't rehearse it like a TED veteran. I told it like a witness, like someone who had clawed her way out of a fire others insisted didn't exist. Afterward, a man in his 50s came up to me, red tie, trembling hands. He introduced himself as Clyde. "The operations director?" I asked. He nodded. His eyes shined but didn't spill. "I stayed quiet too long," he said. "But you said what so many of us couldn't." I shook his hand. "You gave your statement when it counted. You still showed up." We stood there in silence. But it wasn't hollow this time. It was full, with understanding, maybe even peace. Weeks passed. Life began to take shape again. I wasn't rebuilding. I was building something different. And then, one morning, while scrolling for apartments to help a friend relocate, I saw it. My childhood home, listed for sale. The listing described it as charming but in need of care. The photos showed cracked gutters, overgrown ivy, a front porch leaning a little too far forward, like it knew it had nothing left to hold up. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. "They built it with money I gave them," I whispered, "and lost it without me." I closed the tab. That chapter wasn't mine anymore. Instead, I found my place in a park, on a mild spring afternoon, holding a DSLR camera that wasn't even mine. A local high school had asked for community volunteers to help their students with an art project. I had no formal training, just a steady hand and an eye for clarity. A group of teens fumbled with lighting and focus. One kid dropped his lens cap for the 3rd time. "Guess I'm not cut out for photography," he muttered. I grinned. "Everyone starts off blurry. It's what you do next that sharpens the picture." He laughed, embarrassed but warmed, and then his friend handed me a camera that had glitched mid-shot. I took it gently, tapped twice near the shutter, and smiled when it blinked back to life. Sometimes the damage just needs attention, not repair, not reversal, just acknowledgement that it happened. I framed the next shot, angled toward the light. This wasn't the life I thought I'd have. No Sunday dinners, no inheritance, no phone calls from parents asking how my day went. But for the first time, it felt like mine. I didn't win because they lost. I won because I finally chose myself. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. Not every apology will come. Not every family story ends with a group hug or a shared holiday meal. And that's okay. What I learned through all of this, through the lies, the silence, the unraveling, is that self-respect is not selfish. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. And choosing peace over dysfunction, that's not betrayal. That's growth. Maybe you've been in my shoes. Maybe your scars aren't financial but emotional. Words that cut, loyalties broken, trust that never came back. If that's you, I see you. You're not alone. And no matter how loud the world gets, I hope you always protect your peace louder. If this story hit close to home, or even just made you think differently, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a 1 in the comments if any part of this spoke to your heart. Or tell me what city or state you're watching from. I read every message. And hey, if this kind of honest human story is something you value, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories coming. Stories about love, loss, truth, and everything we learn in the in-between. This is Mora. Thanks for walking with me. Until next time.
Living together is impossible. Haven't I said I've reached my limit? I desperately appealed to my wife, Mary, but she just looked at me coldly and retorted, "If you've got a problem, why don't you leave?" "Fine, I'll leave this house." With divorce papers in hand, I stormed out. "I'm going to file this right now," I muttered to myself. After quickly submitting the divorce papers I received from my wife, I couldn't help but wonder what fate awaited her and her mother. My name is John White, and I'm turning 41 this year. My wife, Mary, and I have been married for 7 years. We both work different jobs. I was raised by my maternal grandparents after my parents died in a car accident when I was little. My grandfather, who loved to travel, took me to various places as I was lonely without my parents. Influenced by him, traveling became my hobby. I blog about my solo travels and earn income as a freelancer. It was on one of these trips that I met Mary. We happened to meet at a bar where she was drinking with a group of people. I found myself inadvertently following Mary with my eyes because she was at the center of everyone's attention and cared for me. Mary, who worked at a brokerage firm as a hardworking salesperson, seemed so bright to my eyes. We exchanged contact information, and after a strong pursuit, we started dating and eventually got married. Even after marriage, I continued writing blog articles from home while Mary worked as a company employee. One day, as I was chilling with a cup of coffee, Mary said, "John, I'm off to work. Can you do the laundry and make dinner tonight too?" "Okay." "Hey, can you pick up a tomato can for tonight's meat pasta?" I asked. Mary frowned in annoyance. "I'm working outside, John. Because you're at home, you could do that much, right?" "Sorry, I might not have time to go out today. I'm swamped with work." At that moment, the living room door opened. "John, I've been listening. Why are you asking Mary to run errands?" It was my mother-in-law, Susan, who lives nearby. "Oh, Susan, what brings you here all of a sudden?" I asked in a trembling voice. She glared at me, and then Mary casually dropped a bombshell. "Oh, by the way, I gave her a key to this house." "What? Why would you do that without asking me?" Before I could confront Mary, Susan stared me down. "Is there a problem, John? You're pushing house chores on your working wife. You should be doing everything since you're home." "That's right, Mom. John is awful, isn't he?" Mary joined in with a smirk. "He comfortably lives at home, not earning much, and still has the nerve to be demanding." Being criticized like this, all I could do was bite my lip in silence. "All right, I'll go. Just listen quietly to what you're told since you're being supported by your wife," Susan said with satisfaction. Turning away from her, I retreated to my room. My biggest concern was Susan. After being widowed, she lived alone nearby and seemed to be proud of Mary, who graduated from a prestigious university and still doted on her. Since the beginning of our marriage, Susan disliked my work-from-home lifestyle, always making snide remarks. Mary never stood up for me during these attacks. I realized after marriage that Mary, raised with praise by her mother, was prideful and vain. They still depended on each other, and if I ever complained about her, Mary got upset right away. I dreaded the thought of her frequently coming over. Just thinking about it made me feel depressed. Sure enough, Susan started dropping by often. She criticized every household chore I did and spent entire days at our home chatting with Mary on her days off. This life drained me completely. It was Susan's birthday, and I was on my way to her house. It was a duty I had to fulfill despite my heavy steps. Mary, having work, left the house, and we planned to meet there, so I headed alone to Susan's home. "Happy birthday, Susan," I said as I arrived first, taking out a beautifully wrapped box from a paper bag. "This is a gift for you. It's a handmade bag I bought at a shop I visited for an interview." Before I could finish, she scoffed. "What's this? Trying to go cheap, huh? It's probably some freebie you got, isn't it?" "No, that's not it," I hurriedly denied, but she wasn't listening. "I don't need such a cheap bag. Really, you're so thoughtless. I thought you'd like it, so I prepared it. I said, but she began to berate me with a sharp look. Enough already. I don't like how you use your job as an excuse to travel and inconvenience Mary. That's not fair. I take pride in my work, I retorted, but she continued to look down on me. Pride in your little side hustle. That's laughable. You're living off Mary. Return this useless thing and bring me gift cards instead. All right, I said, putting the present back in the bag and leaving for the department store. I'd like $200 in gift cards, please. After purchasing and wrapping the gift cards, I returned to my in-laws' house, feeling heavy. I'm back, Susan, I said as I entered. Mary, who had arrived in the meantime, popped up. John, it's Mom's celebration today. I ordered some fancy takeout. The dining table was crowded with dishes from a famous restaurant, but I was told to cook, so I bought ingredients. Susan interrupted. What are you talking about? This is obviously better than your cooking. Thanks for this, Mary. I could only watch them with a dissatisfied look. Eventually, I reluctantly sat down, and we started eating. Mary and Susan were chatting happily, but I felt left out. Near the end of the meal, Mary suddenly said, Hey John, shouldn't we consider moving? Moving? There's a new high-rise nearby. Living somewhere with a great view and atmosphere would really motivate me at work. Oh, a high-rise, how nice. Susan was obviously thrilled. But isn't our current house good enough? Mary looked visibly annoyed. We have enough in our budget, so why not? Susan glared at me, pressuring me. Exactly, a man should just quietly listen to his wife. I felt small and could only agree. Okay, indeed, it's not a bad idea if moving would improve my work situation. And if we don't give Susan a key, things might be better than now. I convinced myself and agreed to the move. While proceeding with the arrangements, I firmly told Mary, I need you to promise me something. Once we move, don't give the key to Susan. Why? It's no big deal. I've reached my limit with her meddling. If you can't promise that, we can't move. Mary seemed thoughtful, then put her hand on my shoulder. Okay, if you say so. I can't help it. I won't give her the key. Thanks for understanding. Mary seemed really excited about the high-rise, and with her promise not to give Susan a key, I felt relieved and continued with the moving preparations. Months later, we moved into the high-rise. The location was fantastic, with a great view and a luxurious interior. Living there with Mary, I was finally enjoying a fulfilling life, but the issue with Susan was still looming. Hey, can I invite my mom over today? What? You just invited her yesterday. She started wanting to invite her mother over almost every day. As a result, my stress only increased, leading to more frequent arguments. Please stop inviting Susan every day. Why not? You said not to give her a key, so I'm asking for permission. That's not the point. The day after our argument, I had to leave for an overnight business trip for an article meeting. On the day of the trip, Mary didn't say much as I left. I headed to my destination and busily finished my work. Despite the busy schedule, I managed to finish everything and bought some souvenirs on my way home. I realized something was off the moment I opened the door. There was a vase ornament that wasn't there before. It was identical to one from my in-laws' entryway. A bad feeling crept over me as I went to the living room, only to find it filled with cardboard boxes. What? What's this? Then, smirking, Susan emerged from behind the boxes. Finally back, huh? You told Mary not to give me a key, didn't you? Well, I won't be locked out that easily. Panicking, I confronted her. Susan, what's all this stuff? What do you mean? I'm moving in. It doesn't matter if I have a key if I live here, right? But what about your previous house? I've already canceled that lease. Proudly, she made me dizzy with her words. Then I noticed a piece of paper on the table. Ignoring me, Mary appeared in the living room, confused upon seeing me. Oh, John, you're back. Mary, what is this? I didn't agree to this. Mary, annoyed, said, scratching her head, what's the big deal? We have extra rooms. I can't live with her. I told you I've reached my limit. Even though I made an impassioned plea to her, she looked at me with such cold eyes and set it off. If you have a problem, why don't you leave? Saying that, she held out completed divorce papers toward me. Are you serious? Dead serious. Remember, when you defy me, we're getting a divorce? Now sign it. She forcefully handed me the divorce papers. That's right. Mary and I will live here, so leave, will you? Mary and Susan said so with a look that said it was obvious. Despite everything I'd endured, this betrayal was unbelievable. In the end, they asked me to leave. I don't need a family like this anymore. Biting back tears in my vexation, I calmly stated, "Fine, I'll leave this room." "Good, get your stuff and go. I can't wait to see how you manage your life from now." As I packed, Susan's laughter echoed. Mary avoided looking at me, but I had to say something. "Mary, are you sure about this?" She smirked at me and said, "You'll probably come back soon. Just cool off." I left the high-rise while Susan grinned at me. With divorce papers in hand, I thought, all right, I'll file this immediately. Deciding to part ways with my wife and mother-in-law, I moved on. A month later, while relaxing in my new condo, the intercom rang incessantly. "Who is it?" I asked. "It's us. Open up now." It was Susan and Mary on the screen. Initially wanting to ignore them, I let them in to avoid disturbing the neighbors. "What do you want?" I said with a troubled look. Susan snapped, "What do you mean by leaving that high-rise? It's obvious it's already been sold." Her shock was evident as I told her the truth. "Sold it? That condo was Mary's property, wasn't it? There's no way you could sell it." "Mary's property? What are you talking about? I bought that high-rise myself." Susan looked at me, who had a calm expression, and then at Mary, who stood there pale-faced and motionless. "What's that all about?" I sighed deeply, looking straight at Mary. "Mary, didn't you tell her?" She remained silent, avoiding eye contact. I turned to Susan, who was still confused. "You called me a bottle-feeding freeloader, but I'm actually the founder of a travel blog and occasionally appear in magazines and on TV." "Magazines? TV?" She gaped at me, astonished. I continued calmly, "So I have some savings. By the way, the gift you rejected because it was cheap costs over $1,000. $1,000. She looked shocked. "Well, I returned it as you wished. And about the food delivery on your birthday? Mary paid for it with my credit card." Her face went from shock to anger. Turning quickly to Mary, she said, "Mary, then we can just buy back the high-rise from him. You're a top salesperson with a salary of over $100,000, right? You must have some savings." Mary remained silent. Trying to hold back my laughter, I told Susan, "Mary doesn't have any savings." "What?" Susan looked surprised again, and Mary just stood there. I continued evenly, "She's been continuously losing money on stocks. She's almost out of savings. Isn't that right, Mary?" "No, Mary, that's a lie, right?" She grabbed Mary's arm, shaking her. Mary collapsed to the floor as if her legs gave out. I thought moving to the high-rise would motivate me and lead to success at work. But what? As I questioned her while staring at her, she continued mumbling evasively. "I failed again. Instead of buying it back, I can barely afford to live with Mom." "What?" Susan panicked. Ignoring her, I crossed my arms and said, "I knew it. Mary had no sense in trading stocks. I wanted to support her as her husband, but then Mary crawled in front of me and suddenly strongly begged, "John, I'm so sorry. Please, let's start over." "Mary, what are you saying to this man?" Susan tried to pull her up, but Mary shouted back, "But Mom, we can't survive without him." She kept begging me. I spoke softly, "Mary, look at me." Her eyes filled with hope as she raised her head. I continued gently, "You never helped with household chores, saying it was my duty as your work-from-home husband." "I'm really sorry about that," she apologized with a pained face. I ignored her apology and went on, "You belittled me, saying I should leave. And now this? You took too much for granted. We're already divorced. I don't want anything more to do with you. Let's go our separate ways." As I firmly spoke, she tried to cling to me, but I silently brushed her hand away. Susan, having witnessed everything, cried out in anguish, "Wait a minute. What about the high-rise and our luxurious life?" "That's obviously impossible now," I replied. With a tone of disbelief, she shrieked hysterically, "What are we supposed to do now?" "How about living happily with your beloved daughter?" I suggested. She just gaped, speechless. I helped the dejected Mary stand up and ushered them out. The noisy commotion from Susan lingered at the entrance for a while, but it seemed to quiet down when the building manager arrived. Half a year later, I was on a new journey, traveling abroad. The unique freedom of being overseas felt incredibly refreshing. Recently, I received a message. It was from Mary, whom I had parted ways with that day. Apparently, after being evicted from the high-rise, Mary and her mother had moved into a dilapidated house that almost collapsed. To pay off her debts from stock trading, Mary worked day and night, and her mother, who had never worked before, took a part-time job in a factory to make ends meet. In her message, Mary expressed her gratitude, acknowledging the hardship of earning money and the lessons she learned. I felt a small knot in my heart unravel. Just a few days ago, after a long time back home, I agreed to go out for a drink with Mary upon her invitation. I might have taken out my frustrations on you for doing what you love for a living. I'm really sorry, she said, apologizing again. That day, I felt like I truly heard Mary's honest feelings for the first time. It's okay, thanks to that, I'm very happy now. She smiled wistfully. Going abroad again? Yeah, I'm off again next week. As we parted, she extended her hand. I'll live as hard as you, not to be outdone. Sure, I'm rooting for you. We shook hands firmly. Walking home, I thought about cherishing my work and living my life positively from now on. Want to come over to my place? Those were the words that started it all between the girl and me. She really looked like she was just sleeping. It had been a while since I last saw my sister quietly closing her eyes, not laughing, not crying, just sleeping in the cold coffin. Seeing her like that, the word passed away vaguely crossed my mind, but she didn't look dead at all. Her expression was so peaceful it felt unreal. She was still so young, someone murmured sadly. My sister was in her mid-30s. After a period of overwork and irregular living, she suffered a stroke. Her life should have had much more ahead of it. There must have been so many things she wanted to do, and she must have regretted it the most. What will become of Melanie? Someone's words shifted my gaze to a certain direction. In the dimmest corner of the funeral home, a girl was holding my sister's portrait dearly. That was Melanie, my sister's only daughter. My sister married young and had a child, but her happy marital life didn't last long, and she soon divorced. Is she going to be okay on her own? Back then, our parents were very concerned about her, suggesting she should come back home because of her job and the child from her former husband. Yet she declined with a smile. I'm fine, leave it to me. Even now, thinking back, that line was very much like her. She was exceptionally responsible and family-oriented. That's probably why she said that, not wanting to trouble our parents. True to her word, she raised her daughter Melanie admirably. I hadn't seen Melanie since she was little because my sister was always so busy. When I saw Melanie again after such a long time, she was already a high school student, and I was amazed at how quickly she had grown. What will Melanie do now? Thinking about her future made me feel anxious as if it were my own business. Mom, what's going to happen to Melanie now? In fact, she's going to a facility. What? I couldn't grasp the words immediately. It might have been the obvious course of action, but given Melanie was already alone and probably feeling lonely, being in an unfamiliar place could make her feel even lonelier. She must have cried a lot. Her eyes were red and swollen, her slender body shaking slightly as she hugged my sister's portrait tightly. Seeing Melanie and my sister's smiling face in the portrait made me want to help her, and before I knew it, I was walking towards her. What are you doing, Carl? I heard my mother's voice calling me, but I couldn't pay attention. Melanie, I stopped in front of her and called her name. She slowly looked up and stared back at me. Carl, she said, her voice trembling as if she were about to break. I bent down to meet her gaze and spoke gently. Melanie, if you want, would you like to come to my place? Really? Hearing my words, her eyes widened. Carl, what are you saying? My mother hurried over and grabbed my shoulder. I reassured her and continued, if you really want to go to a facility, then that's fine. But if not, come stay with me. While saying that, I suddenly remembered my sister's dazzling smile that I had seen since I was young. I wanted to protect this girl for my dearly beloved sister's sake. Melanie was staring at my outstretched hand, hesitating. I waited, not rushing her, letting her make the choice. Yes, I'll go, she said, looking at me with a determined gaze as she gently placed her hand in mine. If Mom could see this, she'd definitely cry. Yeah, I think so too. After that, we convinced my mother and the relatives, and I went back to my house with Melanie. As soon as we entered the room, Melanie sighed with a look of disbelief, glancing around my room. It's fair to say it wasn't in the cleanest state. I should have made time to tidy up before bringing her here. I've always been bad at organizing, something my sister used to give me a hard time about, and it brought back those memories. Really, you don't care about it. Never changed since the old days. A voice that sounded like my sister's echoed in my head. and I could even see her disapproving look, which made me smile. As I saw Melanie's face, thinking how much they were like mother and daughter, she said, "Carl, don't just stand there. Let's clean up." At that moment, Melanie handed me a trash bag, and I took it, snapping out of my reverie. "Right, let's get to it." After about 30 minutes of cleaning together, the room, having been a mess, was quickly tidied up. Then we decided to have a late dinner. Opting for simplicity, we ate the junk food I bought on the way home, which Melanie seemed to enjoy, having not eaten it in a while. "So, what should we think about beginning this new life? Can you commute to school from here?" "It's just a different bus route, so I can commute." I was worried that bringing her here on our whim might inconvenience her, but knowing that eased my concerns. Besides getting a new bus pass, the real challenge starts now. "Is there something wrong?" Melanie swallowed nervously, showing an anxious face. "It's about cooking." "Cooking?" She didn't seem to understand at first, so I made sure to clarify. "I'm not good at cooking." I said it with a serious face, releasing a heavy atmosphere. She looked at me, blinking in surprise. I wondered if she thought it was odd for someone who's lived alone to say that. Up until now, I've been getting by with fast food or ready-made meals from the supermarket. But with Melanie living with me, it's a different story. It's not great for someone her age to have an unbalanced diet. As I looked down, unable to bear the silence, she suddenly burst out laughing. I hesitantly looked up, and she was shaking with laughter. "This is a big deal for me, you know. Eating boxed meals every day isn't really good, right?" "I know that's true." Her continued laughter made me feel embarrassed, yet seeing her smile like that was somewhat reassuring. "Mom was right." "What do you mean?" "Mom used to say a lot. Carl is kind and decent looking, but when it comes to cooking, he's really hopeless." With that, she smiled. I was surprised my sister had talked about me like that. "I'll do the cooking. If I don't do anything after being brought here, Mom would scold me." Melanie's smile was bright, but simultaneously her voice sounded pained and sorrowful, which just made my heart ache. I tried not to cry, just like she did, and put on a smile as I said, "Thank you. That would really help." "Leave it to me." She flashed a bright smile. That smile was so much like my sister's that I almost let the tears spill, but quickly looked away so Melanie wouldn't notice. "Carl, what's wrong all of a sudden?" "No, it's nothing, just got something in my eyes." If I started crying now, I'd only make her worry unnecessarily. Plus, she's been putting on a brave face with a smile since the funeral, not shedding any tears. I needed to be strong too, I thought. After that, the days went surprisingly smoothly. "Good morning, Carl." Turns out Melanie is a morning person. By the time I got up, she had already made breakfast and sandwiches for lunch, which really surprised me at first. Moreover, her every dish was delicious. She had learned from her mother since she was a kid. "You're not a morning person, just like Mom." "I always used to get up early," I bragged, trying to seem like a good uncle in front of my niece. Actually, not always, but I wanted to impress her a bit. Melanie was not only good at cooking but seemed to be skilled in all household chores, teaching me various things on days off. "Sort the laundry by colors to prevent color transfer," she instructed. Trying not to laugh at her slightly proud posture, I responded, "Yes, Teacher Melanie." Though I was a bit anxious at first about how things would turn out, she was very capable, and all in all, we had fun. More importantly, I found myself feeling reassured by her gradually increasing smiles. Ever since the day I brought Melanie here, I've been reminded of my sister's words over and over. For me, my girl is like. One night, past 1:00 a.m., as I was about to go to bed, I noticed light coming from Melanie's room. What's she doing up at this time? Curious, I peeked into her room and saw her focus on her desk. She was oblivious to my presence. Right, she's a high school senior in the midst of choosing and preparing for college. According to what my mother told me, her grades are among the top in her class. Despite that, she always helps out around the house. Maybe I've been making her worry unnecessarily. That's when an idea struck me. Okay, this is it. It's Melanie who's working hard, and it will be her who faces the outcome, not me. There's not much I can do for her, but that's exactly why there are things I can do. Ouch! Hot water splashed onto my fingertip, the sound echoing in the quiet kitchen. Phew, did Melanie hear that? For a moment, I tensed and expected a reaction, but there was silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. All right, this is good. Later, I visited her room again. After knocking softly a few times, I slowly opened the door. Melanie, startled by the sound, turned around with a jerk. "What's up?" Seeing the study notes filled with dense text on her desk, I could tell how hard she's been working. May I come in? Sure. Given she's a teenager, I asked for permission before stepping into her room, then offered her the tray I was holding. I remember your mom mentioned you like hot chocolate, so here. Melanie took the tray, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the hot chocolate and hot dog, her face breaking into a happy smile. Hot chocolate and hot dog, that's an odd combo, right? Yeah, but that's all I could make, and I thought it'd be just right for a late night snack. You like ketchup, right? I added so much the hot dog was drenched. The hot dog was simple, but I prepared it with all the love I could muster. Thank you. I'm really happy. This is nothing. Just make sure you don't stay up too late for tomorrow. Yes, got it. I smiled kindly at her and quietly closed the door behind me. By the way, how's living with your niece going? During lunch at the company cafeteria, my coworker Charles, seeing the sandwich Melanie had prepared for me, asked with keen interest. It's going well. She seems busy with her studies lately. Since that day, the light in Melanie's room has often stayed on late into the night. She must be in the critical phase of her exam preparation. I've been quietly rooting for her. Last time I asked, she was about elementary school age, but now she's already that old. But really, it's amazing. It hasn't been long since her mom passed away, and yet she's teaching you household chores as well as cooking for you. She's really mature. I think that's right, I thought to myself. I hadn't realized how capable Melanie was until we started living together. When I saw her at the funeral after a long time, her eyes were red and swollen. She must have cried a lot. But since we started living together, I haven't seen her cry even once. Lately, I've been seeing her smile more. She must be trying her best to get through this in her own way. Maybe I'll buy a cake on the way home today. Wow, you sound just like an uncle. Cut it out. I am Melanie's uncle after all. I've been busy with work and I haven't even been able to properly prepare a midnight snack for her. I feel like I haven't done anything for her. I remember she said she had an important presentation today. Maybe I should get her a little something as a way to say good job. There's a small cake shop near the grocery store, and once when we passed by, I didn't miss Melanie murmuring, "That looks delicious," as she looked at the cakes in the window. I also noticed she was particularly eyeing the chocolate cakes. After work, I hurried to the cake shop and bought various types of chocolate cakes. Looking at the white box, I couldn't help but smile, thinking of how much she would enjoy them. I wondered how Melanie would react. Imagining her smile, I hurried home. "I'm home," I called out, but nobody responded. The usual greeting wasn't there. What's going on? I walked down the hall and noticed a faint light coming from Melanie's room. Maybe she was concentrating on her studies, holed up in her room. I moved slowly towards it, feeling somehow that I needed to be quiet, though it was my own house. With each step closer, faint voices reached my ears, growing louder until I realized it was the sound of crying. My heart clenched. Had Melanie been crying alone in her room the whole time? I believed she was doing so well. I chose to watch over her from afar, believing in her strength. I'm right here for her, but what am I doing? I slowly grasped the doorknob and said, "Melanie, I'm coming in, okay?" As I opened the door, Melanie turned around quickly, surprise written all over her face. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. "It's not what it seems," she said, trying to hide her tearful eyes and wet cheeks. She roughly wiped them with the sleeve of her shirt. My heart ached at the sight, and I gently approached and hugged her. "It's okay to cry." At my words, her face froze for a moment, then contorted as she began to cry. "You've done really well." Her small body leaned into me, and the next moment she burst into loud sobs, tears streaming down her face. I should have done this for her long ago. Melanie was bearing it all alone, and I took her strength for granted. I felt really sorry. I gently stroked her small head. After crying for a while, she seemed to calm down and started to speak. "I've been trying hard with my studies, but after Mom passed away, my grades dropped and I felt so frustrated. I want to do well for Mom, but it's been hard. I don't know what to do. I wanted to give something back to her." Hearing her earnest feelings, my eyes welled up. I remembered something my sister used to say. "Mom always said that you are her treasure." Really? For me, my girl is a treasure. The look on my sister's face when she thought about Melanie was full of love. It was clear how deeply she adored her daughter. You don't have to push yourself too hard. Just by living happily every day, Mom would be happy. And as for studies, there's always a chance to make up for it. You've done your best, and that's enough to repay her. So don't be too hard on yourself. And if you ever find things tough, Please talk to me. To me, you are as precious as a treasure." With tears still streaming down her face, Melanie smiled a relieved smile at my words. "Thank you, Carl. Maybe I've been forcing myself to put on a brave face, trying not to be a burden." "Not at all. You're a great girl, and you've really been a big help. Oh, that's right. I bought some chocolate cake on my way home. Let's eat it together." "Yes, I'll eat it." Seeing Melanie's happy face as she ate the cake made me smile too. Our life together is just beginning, but I want to protect her going forward for my sister in heaven as well. That was the renewed promise I made to myself. "Come on, have some more wine," my husband urged. We had come to a secluded rental villa for our honeymoon. We were alone, taking our time and celebrating with some nice wine. However, after only 2 glasses, I felt strangely tipsy, and the room started to spin. "Already drunk? You're hopeless," he teased. After drinking the water my husband handed me, I was suddenly overcome with sleepiness. Maybe I've been busy and tired lately, but when I glanced at my husband, instead of looking worried, he seemed to be smiling for some reason. Then I remembered a note from a stranger that had been handed to me. It said, "Run away now. My name is Mary, and I'm 27. We had our wedding 6 months ago and finally went on a slightly delayed honeymoon. I met my husband William 3 years ago in a cooking class. He's 12 years older, but we get along great and share the same taste in food. We also both lost our parents at an early age, so it was natural for our relationship to deepen and lead to marriage. Though we had our wedding, our work was so busy that we could only take a 1-week break. So we looked for a place where we could relax and chose a natural, serene location for our honeymoon. The rental villa where we were staying was just over 3 hours by car from home. On the way, we stopped at a restaurant for food as I was getting hungry. From there, the villa was about 2 more hours away. I have felt like someone was watching me since we entered the restaurant. After finishing our meal, a waitress handed me a small note as I stood to go to the restroom. The paper read, "Escape now without being noticed." I tried to ask what it meant, but the waitress had already disappeared into the back of the restaurant. I didn't see her face, so I didn't know who handed it to me. I thought it might be a cruel prank, but when I entered the stall and looked at the note again, there were digits that seemed to be a phone number. What on earth is going on? The excitement of our honeymoon suddenly gave way to an uneasy feeling. Who was that woman earlier? Driven by a desire to find the woman and inquire about this note, I heard voices from outside the restroom. "Hey Mary, are you okay? Feeling sick?" My husband called out. "No, nothing's wrong. I'll be out soon. Just wait at the table," I replied, lying on the spot. Unsure of whether or not to show my husband the note, I stuffed it deep into my pocket. Our long-awaited honeymoon, which had been filled with joy and excitement, suddenly became clouded with uncertainty. I felt I mustn't let my husband sense my inner turmoil, so I acted more cheerful and lively than usual as we left the restaurant. Next, we stopped at a supermarket to buy food and drinks and arrived at the remote rental villa 2 hours later. As we relaxed, walking together and enjoying our leisure time, I began to forget about the note. By evening, we decided to make our favorite dishes. I made his favorite hamburger steak, and he made mashed potatoes. We savored our meal across the table, toasting with wine and enjoying lively conversation, feeling so happy. And yet, after 2 glasses of wine, my head started to feel foggy. "I bought your favorite premium wine, Mary. Drink up," William encouraged. I might be getting a little tipsy," I admitted. "What are you talking about? You've hardly drunk anything." My husband offered me more wine. I thought about stopping, but looking at my cheerful husband, I didn't want to ruin the pleasant atmosphere, so I sipped the wine little by little. However, after a while, I started to feel even dizzier and as though I was becoming quite drunk. Feeling that any more would make me sick, I pulled my hand away from the wine glass. My husband stared intently at my face, checking my complexion. "You usually handle a whole bottle of wine fine. Is your daily fatigue catching up with you?" "Maybe it is," I replied. "You're such a helpless one. If so, drink this. It'll sober you up." "Here," he said, handing me the hangover supplement he usually takes along with some water. Yet even after drinking it, my drunkenness didn't subside, and I was strangely overcome with intense drowsiness. Finally, I was in such a state that I could barely sit in my chair, leaning on the table. "It's surprisingly easy," he muttered. Opening my eyes slightly at those words, I saw my husband, instead of looking concerned, had an eerie smile on his face. You might just slip into an eternal sleep. Thanks for getting life insurance. Without caring for me as I lay limp and unable to get up, my husband poured all the wine down the sink, tidied up his dishes and glasses, and left the rental villa. Unable to move at all, I heard the sound of a car engine gradually fading away. What on earth is happening? The note that the waitress gave me flashed through my mind. Run away now, might have been anticipating this situation. The last words my husband said echoed in my mind. Thanks for getting life insurance. Just thinking about the meaning of these words sent a chill down my spine with terrifying thoughts popping up one after the other. By the way, it was him who first brought up getting insurance. Within a week of our marriage, my husband strongly urged us to take out life insurance together. When I hesitated, feeling something was off, he said, looking sad, "Life insurance is like a charm for us. In case something happens, since both of us have lost our parents, I thought it'd save us from hardship if something went wrong." I was convinced at the time, but now, could it be that he's been targeting this all along? With great effort, I crawled to the kitchen and chugged down an unopened bottle of water. My mind started to clear a bit, and I took out the note I had received and pressed the call button on my mobile phone. After a few rings, a woman answered. When I told her I had received the note and was incoherent from the wine, she responded with urgency. "That's why I gave you the note saying run away now. You might be in danger." "What? What do you mean? Please tell me what you know," I pleaded. According to what she hesitantly told me, she was my husband's ex-girlfriend. Apparently, they were dating about 5 years ago when his parents died from an illness. His behavior was so suspicious that she became frightened and decided to break up. However, she couldn't get rid of him, so she vanished. I was stunned to hear her story. I had heard that his parents died more than 10 years ago in a traffic accident. What's going on here? So when we entered the restaurant, she was incredibly surprised. She hid in the back of the shop so we wouldn't see her. I wasn't imagining the feeling that someone was watching me during dinner. The waitress must have sensed that my husband was up to something and handed me a note when I went to the restroom, wanting to help with all her heart. "Thank you for giving me the note. I can't thank you enough. It must have taken courage," I said. I heard her sobbing on the phone at my words. "I can't believe this. I can never forgive this." Contrary to my gratitude to her, I was terribly shocked to find that my trusting husband had betrayed me. Gradually, I became consumed with anger. "I have to punish that man, no matter what," I said, without thinking. She replied, "Of course." But I had a plan. Carrying it out might put me in even more danger, but I couldn't just let things go on like this. I was determined to make him realize his wrongs. About 2 hours later, I heard the sound of my husband's car engine returning. After the phone call, I had fallen ill again and was lying on the floor. I could see my husband, still wearing his shoes, entering through the door. He slowly approached me, crouched down in front of me, and gently put his ear to my lips to check my breathing. "Damn, she's still alive. She's stubborn. I should have made her drink more," he muttered. "What does that mean?" I faintly whispered, and he began to speak with a defiant smile. "I'll tell you as a gift to the dead. You know I hate working, so I made my parents drink plenty of alcohol to quickly get my hands on some money. Then, I made them drink the supplement I made and gave to you. Ha! I married you because you had no one else, and now the life insurance money will be all mine. Since the premium is $500 a month, I might get around $500,000. I'm thrilled." I felt a chill as my husband's cruel words sank in. "You won't have your way," I croaked. "Don't act tough. You can't even move. I'll take all your savings too. Now, I'll send you to the afterlife right away with this," he sneered. My husband then took out several of the supplements from earlier. It sounded like he was dissolving them in water with the noise of a glass and stirring. He grabbed my hair, lifted my face, and poured the mixture into my mouth. "Stop it. Come on. Gulp it down. I won't hold back this time. You'll be in the afterlife in no time." I resisted desperately, coughing and somehow spitting out the liquid that had been forcibly poured into my mouth. "That's enough. Let go of Mary." Standing there was the store clerk, his former lover, who had handed me the note. "What? Why is Emma here?" I had arranged for her to come here after giving her the location of the villa on the phone earlier, I said, standing up smoothly from the floor. My husband looked completely baffled. It's true the wine affected me quickly, but I had felt something was off when he gave me the supplements while I was drunk and made sure not to swallow them. You must have thought I'd come back here to check what had happened to me. Damn you, you tricked me. I'll never forgive you. I'll wipe both of you off the face of this earth, he roared. Recklessly, he grabbed the poker next to the wood-burning stove and approached us. Stop it. Screaming won't help you here in this deserted place. Now, which one of you should I finish off first? He said, swinging the stick in his hand, shattering mirrors and vases in the room. Just as I couldn't escape any longer, my husband stood in front of me, raising his arm to strike. At that moment, the door banged open with a loud noise, and the police burst in. His former lover had been watching the situation from the next room and had called the police. It was a close call. Indeed, that was a close one, I muttered. With a shocked look on his face, my husband's arm remained raised, frozen in place. I took the opportunity to turn off the recording button on the mobile phone I had propped on the shelf and handed it to the police. I've recorded everything in here. This should be enough evidence, right? Oh, and the supplement I pretended to drink. I'll give that as evidence too. What? What's going on? My husband stammered. Actually, I had called the police after my husband abandoned me, but they didn't take me seriously because I was slurring my words, thinking it was a drunk's joke. That's why, with the cooperation of his former lover, I staged a convincing act to elicit a confession from my husband. Honestly, I was terrified of my husband and thought about running away right then and there. But I knew that if I ran, my husband would target me, and I believed that the police would surely come if they had evidence of a crime in progress. This is just a little marital spat, not something to bother the busy police with, he said, tossing the stick he was holding onto the floor and scratching his head. I was fed up with him, thinking he could still deceive us with all this evidence stacked against him. You might as well give up. We have your own confession and the video evidence of you trying to take our lives. Mary, you're exaggerating. Calling the police is going too far. I'll apologize, so don't be mad. I wouldn't really harm you, would I? There's no way I can believe you now. Besides, I will have everything investigated thoroughly, not only about this incident but also the death of your parents. That's such an old story, and there's no evidence. He seemed to think that he wouldn't be charged with a serious crime if he was caught just for this incident. Then the ex-lover, who had been silently observing, spoke up. I'm not sure if this will be helpful, but I have stored everything he said at that time and anything that seems to be evidence. Really? No, no way. I don't want to waste my life over something like this, my husband stammered. My husband tried to escape, but he was quickly caught by the police, handcuffed, and taken away in a patrol car. He shouldn't be able to get out of detention for a while. Watching the patrol car get smaller, I felt a release from anxiety. Emma, are you hurt? I asked. I'm fine, but I was scared. We don't know what would have happened to us if the police had arrived a few minutes later. I knew my life was in danger, but it was all to expose this man's deeds. Thank you for courageously giving me the note. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to me. I owe you my life. No, I think it was resolved because you believed in me, and Mary acted without considering her own danger. I'm just glad you're safe. This should ease the pain of losing my in-laws. But it was indeed a terrifying experience. Afterward, we couldn't stop trembling for a while. Soon, my husband's attempts on my life and his taking of his parents' lives would be exposed. Of course, I'm divorcing him and canceling my expensive life insurance policy. Now all I have to do is wait for him to be judged. I'm scared but truly relieved that such a terrible person was not left at large. I'm hoping to find someone I can be with for life, and I'm learning from this. Please be careful with men who try to sell you life insurance. You're in the way. Get out now. Fair enough. Let's go then. What's your name? I'm Kane. I'm a sophomore in college. I just finished all my general education courses and will be majoring in economics next year. I'll start learning specialized subjects soon. Job hunting will kick in, but I'm also considering graduate school. My parents are supportive of either path, which I appreciate. We're financially well off, thanks to my dad building a successful business from scratch. While I don't like to brag about it, we've never had financial issues, and I feel grateful to my parents. Once I find a job, I'm determined to repay their kindness. Despite how good my life might look, I have my own problems. It revolves around my brother and his wife. My brother Rick is 10 years older than me. To be honest, I've never really gotten along with him. Friends have told me that siblings of opposite genders who are more than 5 years apart don't talk much, but Rick and I have always talked a lot. However, we're not exactly close. Hey Kane, go buy some comics for me and get a notebook for studying. Use your own allowance, of course. Oh, and grab a drink too. I've been running errands like this for years. My parents would step in when they were around, but since they both work, I've mostly just complied out of fear. This dynamic hasn't changed even though I'm an adult now. If anything, it feels like it's getting worse. The turning point was last year when Rick got married. He married Stacy, who is the same age as him. Stacy is a beautiful woman, but she's also pretty cold. I didn't like her from the moment we met, and it turns out my instincts were right. You have a sister whose parents are well off. I wonder if Caitlin could give us $5,000 as wedding money. Stacy always seemed to be pressuring me, even though I'm still in school. Thankfully, my parents stepped in. Kate is still a student living at home. The wedding gift money can be the same as ours. Yeah, we'll give a little extra. But my brother and Stacy weren't satisfied. That's not right. You're an adult. Paid up. Exactly. We'll be family for a long time. You need to step up. I ended up just giving them money that my parents gave me to avoid any drama. Frankly, both my brother and Stacy are pretty greedy. I was hoping to keep my distance as much as possible, but they keep showing up at our house despite my wishes. They never miss a chance to take a jab at me for living at home and commuting to college. You're still living at home. You don't plan on being a burden forever, do you? I don't want a sister who's good for nothing. Seriously, even if college is close, it's so uncool. Why don't you move out? That way, we could save on utilities and groceries, plus there'd be more inheritance for us. My brother said all this even though he himself commuted from home to college and even had to repeat 2 years. Stacy's comments were just as bad. My parents are still working and are in good health, but she's already talking about inheritance. It's just insensitive. Anything I'd say would just make them mad, so I've been biting my tongue. But things have gotten even worse. Now they're bringing their stuff into our home for some reason. Despite living only 30 minutes away in a large apartment, they keep hauling in clothes and knickknacks. Rick, this stuff is in the way. Why are you bringing it here? You have your own home, right? My mom finally spoke up. My brother didn't care. This is my home too. What's the big deal? Besides, Kane has more stuff here. Kane lives here. Of course she does, Mom replied. Well, I'm also a child of this house. Don't discriminate between your kids. There's nothing wrong with keeping our stuff here. Stacy is a part of my family, so she's part of this house. Exactly, future in-laws, Stacy chimed in. Rick will eventually inherit everything. Might as well start now, right? They kept ignoring my parents' warnings. One day, as this state of affairs continued, they took it a step further. One weekend morning, I woke up to the sound of heavy footsteps. The house was filled with burly men following my older brother and Stacy as they shuffled stuff around. It seemed like my brother and Stacy had hired them. What do we do with this? One of the men asked. Just leave that. Oh, but take that one away, Rick instructed. Got it. Following my brother's instructions, the men started moving drawers that belonged to my parents and me. They even took my college textbooks and other stuff I use daily. Hey, what are you doing? Stop this now, I demanded. Well, we were hired by them, one of the men replied, nodding towards Rick and Stacy. No matter what I did to stop them, they didn't listen. Even when I directly complained, they just glanced towards my brother and Stacy with puzzled looks. Apparently, they had been hired with a handsome sum. Before I knew it, all the essential items were out of the house. Without pause, everything was loaded into a truck parked outside. Oh, Kane, leave your money, okay? We'll put it to good use. And please take those 2 old folks with you. You can keep your wallet at least. Don't think we're heartless. We've rented a weekly apartment for you to stay with Mom and Dad. 2 weeks' rent is paid. Go there for now. We've arranged for your stuff to be delivered there too. What? You can't. But before I could say another word, they kicked me and my parents out into the yard. I stood there stunned, looking up at the house I'd been sleeping in just minutes ago. But then I snapped back to reality. I couldn't just stand there paralyzed. I'm an adult now, not just a kid who needs protecting by my parents. I guess I'll have to take a break from college. I'll find a part-time job to get by for now. I wonder what happened to my bank book and seal. It would be nice if my brother had put some basic funds aside for me. But I can't just worry all day. The only thing to do is go to the weekly apartment they told us about. It's okay, Dad, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore. Saying this, I looked back at my parents. They must be even more stunned than I am betrayed by my brother. So it's up to me to lift their spirits. My expectations were shattered in a really good way. Huh? When I turned around, both of them were smiling. Well, that went better than I thought, right? Dad said. It happened faster than expected, Mom added. Wait, what's going on? Turns out they had suspected my siblings' scheme all along. From the moment they first moved their belongings, they had anticipated a day like this. But listen, Kane, people like that won't stop no matter what you say. If anything, they'll dig their heels in deeper when faced with reason, Dad explained. Exactly. You can't face people like Rick head on. Instead, let them think they've succeeded in their little plot. They'll let their guard down. That's when you make your move, Mom added. So this all went according to your plan? I asked, incredulous. Their smiles deepened at my question. Look, your dad didn't build a company from scratch for nothing. It's about time to show you some of the skills that have supported your dad, Kane. I'll teach you what it really means to handle people. They suggested we go to the weekly apartment for now. I thought we were going straight home to confront my siblings, but apparently not. Following Dad's guidance, I walked as if deeply disheartened. I feel like we're being followed, I whispered. Don't worry, Kane. Just act like you don't notice. Types like Rick and Stacy enjoy tormenting their prey. They'll probably report back to someone that we look downcast. Just keep acting disheartened, Mom advised. Heeding their advice, I proceeded to the apartment. Once inside, they announced energetically, okay, most of the plan is a success. Time to counterattack Rick and his gang. On Mom's cue, Dad placed a call. Proceed as planned. He was speaking to a moving company. Additionally, it seemed one of Dad's trusted employees was ready to direct the operation. The movers started pouring into our home. Boss, everything is going as planned. Your son and daughter-in-law seem to be shocked. I expected as much. Carry on. Over the phone, there was a buzz like live commentary. Apparently, the movers had been prepped by Dad on what items to take. The sound of safes and other valuables being moved filled the air. What the heck? You guys bursting into someone's house like this? What's the big idea? Rick shouted. Really? You want me to call the police? Stacy threatened. No, we're just here on the homeowner's request. Hey, excuse me, could you move? You're in our way. Wait a minute, that's my safe with my bank book in it. Where are you taking that? Rick demanded. Your father requested this. He told us to move it to the new house. What's going on? Stacy asked, bewildered. I was just about to check the combination. It's your father's wish. And by the way, Rick, it's telling that you, his own son, don't even know the safe combination. Clearly you're not trusted. Shut up, you're just an employee. Wait, that jewelry belongs to my mother-in-law. What are you doing with it? This is under the vice president's order. We're also taking this to the new home. If you damage it, you'll be billed for it. What? Stop. I can't afford that. Then please don't get in the way. About an hour later, the room quieted down, and I heard one of the employees. Mr. President, Vice President, all arrangements are complete. Sorry to bother you on your day off. It's not trouble at all. Thank you, my father replied. He hung up the phone and turned to me. Let's go to our real home. He led me to a mansion just as lavish as our old home, actually even grander. What is this place? I asked, astonished. Our new home. Yes, Kane, the security is even tighter. Rick won't be able to get in so easily. What about the old house? I quietly sold it. A broker will step in tomorrow. And what about Rick and Stacy? Don't know, don't care. They might get kicked out, but it was never their home to begin with. They'll be fine. Exactly, Kane. Now we've got a busy day with the move. We've got to get it all done by tonight, Mom encouraged. We all started to work, taking stock of the new house's layout and organizing our rooms and the living area. By nightfall, we had finished everything. I was too tired to even think about Rick and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, after a good rest, my parents explained everything. Apparently, they had foreseen this day ever since Rick got married. Rick is just like that, and I suspected Stacy would be the same. So I had a backup plan all along. Originally, I planned to move into this house anyway. It's a secret even from Rick so we can live here in peace. What about my brother? I can't imagine they'd keep quiet after all this. You're right. It seems like Rick and the gang are quite disgruntled. But we have a top-notch lawyer at our company. It's clear who's in the wrong here, don't you think? Absolutely. It turns out Dad's legal consultant reached out to my brother. If they tried to harm us any further, they'd be sued. Hearing this, my brother gave up on taking over our old home. They were left high and dry. But that's not all. Turns out my brother couldn't land a job after college and was working at our dad's company out of pity. There's no way we're keeping someone like you on staff. You're not my son anymore. You're fired, Dad said. Spurred by this incident, my brother, who had zero skills to begin with, struggled to find a new job. Stacy, who was all about the money, was absolutely furious. Rick, you're useless without money. I want a divorce, she declared, and they got divorced. But Stacy wasn't going to get off scot-free either. Dad talked to Stacy's employer about the whole ordeal. They couldn't keep her on, especially if it meant risking a relationship with an important client. They fired Stacy on the condition that they continue their relationship with Dad's company as before. I can't believe this is happening to me. I was supposed to be the boss's wife, living the high life. All those jewels, that mansion, they were supposed to be mine. Stacy complained, but it was too late. She was also left penniless. Her family knew the situation but had no intention of helping her. They ostracized her instead. Hearing all this made me realize that despite thinking I was grown up, I'd been naive. I still have much to learn from my parents. I must continue to strive, ensuring I never become like my brother or Stacy. Luckily, I still have time before I graduate from college, so I'm going to keep working hard, following my parents' example. Mom, if Dad's gone, the company's all mine, my brother Daniel said, disbelief dripping from his words. Obviously, Daniel, our mother Patricia responded. Plus, if you do the math, there's a sizable inheritance in Plan B with Dad's life insurance. We could live large for a while. It's like a bonus. Got to thank our absent dad. I felt like I was about to explode with anger. What's wrong with these people? This is unforgivable. I can't let them have their way. Just as I was about to yell, I got a call from Dad in the hospital. This story goes back a few months. My name is Christopher, a 33-year-old architect working at a design firm. I moved out of my family home and now live alone in a nearby condo. Being single is a little lonely, but I love my job and live a fulfilling life every day. Today is my day off, and I had plans to meet with my dad. James. Christopher, how have you been? Dad showed up for our meetup with his usual warm smile on his face. Dad, long time no see. Have you lost some weight? Running a business must be tough work. Keeps me busy, but I'm doing well. Let's get going. I occasionally meet up with my dad like this to catch up over a meal. Today, Dad invited me to join him for some volunteer work. We went to a small children's care facility on the outskirts of town. Hello, Mr. Smith. James, Christopher, hello, and thank you for coming today. We were greeted by the friendly face of the elderly director. Dad and Mr. Smith were chatting away warmly. It turns out my dad grew up in this facility. After leaving, he put himself through college and started his own architecture firm. Even without any relatives to rely on, he made it on his own, and I've always admired him for that. On his days off, Dad often invites me to volunteer at the facility with him. Since we both have backgrounds in architecture, we can repair furniture and playground equipment. James, Christopher, you've helped a lot today. After finishing our repairs on beds, chairs, and swings, Mr. Smith thanked us as we were leaving. I felt good about making a difference, and for Dad, visiting Mr. Smith, who's like a father to him, must be important too. As we walked side by side pondering where to grab a bite, a sleek black luxury car pulled up next to us. The window rolled down, and out popped Mom, driving the car with my brother Daniel. Well, look who it is. Back from the care facility again, are we? Mom said, it's embarrassing to have a dad without parents. Can we stop this already? Mom, let's go, my brother spoke, chomping on his gum. I wanted to retort that he was the one who should be embarrassed, being an adult with no stable job and dyed hair, but I held back. No point in saying anything to these people. It would be a waste. Daniel and I are going to dinner. You two can grab some fast food and don't forget to fold the laundry, all right? Understood, Patricia, Dad responded, and without another word, Mom rolled up the car window, and they drove off. Dad and I just watched them go, saying nothing. Mom and my brother looked down on Dad, belittling him at every turn. Honestly, Mom might be beautiful on the outside, but that's about it. The reason they can do all this is that they're basically living off Dad's income. They've been trash talking him for as long as I can remember, saying he's a deadbeat from an orphanage with no ambition or excitement in his life. They probably only see Dad as a wallet that listens to their every demand. What's worse, my brother Daniel eats all of this up and joins in on making fun of Dad. Our family has 2 kids, but Mom has always lavished her love only on Daniel. She's pretty much ignored me, giving Daniel whatever he wants whenever he wants. Thanks to that, Daniel still clings to Mom like a child even in his 30s. He still calls her mommy and lets her dictate even what he wears and eats. When I heard that Mom accompanied him to every driving lesson, I was floored. Dad, isn't it hard living with those 2? I asked my dad that question. I'm used to it. Besides, they're still family. I have to do what I can, Dad said in a lonely voice before heading back to the house he shares with Mom and Daniel. All I could do was watch him go. A month passed. I got a call from Mom saying that Dad had collapsed, so I rushed to the hospital. Dad, what on earth happened to you? Dad, who looked even more fragile than a month ago, responded, I got some tests done, and they found cancer apparently. My dad had been diagnosed with advanced progressive stomach cancer. According to the doctors, he had about 3 months to live, give or take. I never thought this would happen, especially since he's only in his 60s. Even my mom was visibly shaken. Why'd you let things get to this point? I lashed out. You and Daniel have been pushing Dad too hard. You know he's been stressed out. Christopher, how dare you speak to your parents like that?
You're nothing like Daniel, Mom snapped back. And what is Daniel doing at a time like this? Off gambling again? While Mom and I were arguing, Dad spoke up quietly. Both of you, stop. I'm fine. Go home for today. Dad, I'm sorry. I'll be back. I left the hospital room, but between my worries for Dad's health and the shock of his prognosis, I couldn't sleep that night. After that, I took on the responsibility of bringing Dad a change of clothes and doing his shopping as he requested. Sure enough, neither Mom nor my brother lifted a finger. Still, I wanted to make Dad's time as comfortable as possible. I popped into his hospital room during breaks from work and took care of him for 2 months. Then one day, when I went back to my parents' house to grab some of Dad's belongings, I overheard Mom and my brother talking in the living room. Mommy, once Dad is gone, the business is all mine, right? Stunned by my brother's words, I listened more closely. Daniel, it's not a given. Besides, if you do the math, there should be around $2 million in inheritance. Wow, that's awesome. Maybe I should buy another car. Why not? You'll be the company president, so you should drive a nice car. Thanks to his life insurance, we can live a little lavishly for a while. It's like a bonus. Got to thank Dad for not being around. I felt like I was going to explode with anger. What kind of trash are these people? Unforgivable. I can't let them get their way. Just as I was about to unleash my anger, I got a message from Dad. Christopher, can you come to my hospital room alone? I managed to contain my emotions and went to see my dad. He had lost even more weight recently, and his complexion looked bad. Christopher, thank you for always being there. What are you talking about, Dad? Just tell me what I can do to help. As I sat next to his bed, Dad began. There's something important I need to talk to you about. I listened quietly to my dad, holding back the tears as I responded. Visiting hours are almost over, so I'm going to head out. But about what we discussed, Dad, just focus on taking care of yourself for now. Ah, thank you, Christopher. See you later. In the end, that was the last conversation I had with my dad. He took a turn for the worse shortly after and passed away the next day. I held my emaciated father's hand in the hospital room and cried. My mom and brother also put on a show of tears, but only this time. Things got pretty tough after that. Mom was technically in charge of the funeral, but of course she didn't lift a finger. Instead, she showed up at the funeral all done up in makeup and tried to cut corners on the costs. He doesn't even have any relatives. Why not keep it simple? Dad's coworkers and business associates are coming to the funeral. Don't embarrass us with that kind of talk. And today, while getting his necktie tied by Mom, Daniel chimed in, just do what Mom says. Don't waste money on a dad like that. Daniel, just be quiet. If it's about money, I'll handle it. At least let me give Dad a proper send-off. So I ended up taking charge of the entire funeral. It seemed Dad was well loved by many people. Lots of folks came to pay their respects, which made me really happy. About a week had passed since the funeral ended. That's when Mom spoke up. Now that we are a family of 3, we finally got that person out of the picture.
Now the $2 million inheritance is all ours, right, Daniel? And Dad's company too. Man, I'm finally going to be the boss. Listen up, Christopher, you better give up your share. Got it? Just after the funeral had ended, they were already talking about this stuff. Annoyed, I replied, Dad had already arranged all the inheritance matters with the lawyer. I have the contact details. What? Why didn't you say that sooner? Call the lawyer right now. That's right, Christopher, hurry up. So I dialed the number on the business card that Dad had given me. Not long after, the lawyer, a woman in her mid-30s, arrived. I'm Attorney Williams. I've been authorized by James to handle matters concerning the inheritance. I'm very sorry for your loss. While shaking hands and greeting the lawyer, my brother Daniel said, Wow, I thought lawyers were all old dudes. You're quite the looker. Got a boyfriend? Oh, Daniel, do you like her? Mommy prefers someone younger, my mom chimed in. Knock it off, both of you. Thank you for coming all this way. Please come in, I interjected, ushering Miss Williams into the room. Let me explain. First of all, concerning the company, James had told me before he passed that it would be transferred to an acquaintance's company. I've been proceeding with the paperwork. What? Daniel shouted. What does that mean? I was supposed to become the CEO. I've heard nothing of the sort. For the sake of the employees, the company will be merging with a trusted and skilled company that your father was fond of. The other company has already agreed, so there's nothing that can be done. That damn outsider. Damn it. Daniel fumed. My mom hurriedly chimed in. Daniel, calm down. The inheritance is ours, right? It should be around $2 million, shouldn't it? Miss Williams answered in a matter-of-fact manner. No, there's nothing like that. The company was not doing as well as you think, and any remaining assets have been used to prepare for the company's transfer. What? What about our money? There should be $2 million coming in, Daniel exclaimed. Mommy, what's going on? Patricia has received a substantial life insurance payout. She has left a will expressing the desire to gift that money. What are you talking about? We've already spent that on a new car. Dad had multiple insurance policies, right? What about those other payouts? Regarding life insurance, James had canceled all policies before he passed. All I know is that the money was used up. What? Where did all the money go before he died? Damn it. Was he planning to leave us without a dime? Daniel shouted. I watched Miss Williams leave as my mom and brother lost their composure. As she left, she said, It's tough, isn't it? All I could do was give her a wry smile in return. I looked up at the night sky, recalling the last conversation I had with my father. While walking, I remembered, Christopher, would you take over the company if I die? There might not be much in assets, but I should be able to leave you at least the insurance money. There should be enough of that. Dad, you were the only one in the family who was kind to me. I wanted to leave something for you at least. Dad, I respect you for building the company from scratch with your own hard work. I want to make it on my own too. I don't need the company or the insurance money, but if there's any inheritance left, I want you to use it as you wish. I'll help in any way I can. Christopher, thank you. Thank you. Walking alone, I realized I had arrived at the facility. Despite it being night, Mr. Smith was in the yard. When he saw me, he ran over in tears. Christopher, James passed away so suddenly. He told me not to come to the funeral, but actually, Mr. Smith, my dad was grateful for both you and the facility. I just found out too, a little while ago, James made a large donation to the facility. A really large one. Now we can buy the things the kids need. We might even be able to renovate. Thank you, but I wish James could have lived. I wish he could have been happy. While comforting a tearful Mr. Smith, I found myself crying too. Looking up at the starry sky, I whispered in my heart, Dad, you did it. You really did it. A few months later, I occasionally met with Miss Williams to handle the intricate legalities of transferring the company and settling the estate. This was to be my last meeting with Miss Williams. After expressing my gratitude for her support, Miss Williams offered her condolences once more, comforting me in a considerate manner. As I was seeing off Miss Williams, I thought about how I might never see her beautiful face again. She was such a kind and gracious person. Just then, as I was waving goodbye, a familiar car pulled up beside Miss Williams and out jumped my brother, wielding a metal bat. Ah, hey, what the heck are you doing? I yelled and quickly tackled my brother. Shut up. Let go of me. His face turned red as I held him down to the ground. He was struggling. Were you trying to attack Miss Williams? What's going on? What's going on? Because of her, I didn't get the company or the money. It's her fault. Damn it. That's ridiculous. This isn't Miss Williams' fault. I had thought he was foolish, but this was beyond anything I'd expected. While shielding a trembling Miss Williams, I called the police. Inside my brother's car, not just a bat, but also a rope and a stun gun were found. Clear weapons. He was swiftly arrested. When our mother found out, she fumed. You'd send Daniel to jail? Your own family. How heartless. I replied calmly, I no longer consider you or him family. My only family was my late dad. I'm cutting ties with both of you. Mom was still ranting, but I ignored her and cooperated fully with the police investigation. I later found out that my brother had also been repeatedly harassing Miss Williams online, making vulgar comments and slandering her. Threats had even been made, and the police were in the process of identifying him. My brother was sentenced to jail for his attempted attack on Miss Williams. She also sued him in civil court for defamation, and he was ordered to pay damages too. Please take every penny he has if that'll make him reflect on his actions. I'm truly sorry for all this. Upon my apology, Miss Williams gave a faint smile and said, I'll do just that. Thank you for saving me from a dangerous situation. From now on, I hope you at least find happiness, Christopher. Several months later, when spring arrived, I found myself at Sakura Garden. Today it wasn't for volunteering. It was a business meeting. Thanks to the funding from my father's donation, the aging facility was planning a renovation. Mr. Smith had approached me for the architectural design. I initially declined, citing my experience, but Mr. Smith was unyielding. James always proudly said Christopher will become an exceptional architect. He's already surpassed me. We can do this because of James. I'd really like for you to take on this project, Christopher. With sentiments like that, how could I say no? I want to create a wonderful building that brings even a small amount of happiness to the kids and Mr. Smith. I'm sure my dad would have been proud of that. As for my brother, well, he hasn't changed even after his sentencing. Actually, he's become even more irresponsible. Though he avoided jail due to probation, he still begs our mom for money daily, starts drinking in the afternoon, and gambles away what he borrows. My mom is being pushed around by my brother every day. The large house we lived in, thanks to my dad, along with the car bought with insurance money, were sold to pay for Miss Williams' compensation and my brother's bail. Now it seems they live together in an old apartment. A friend told me she's lost her beauty and looks more like an old woman now. She brought this upon herself, but I hope she at least reflects on how she treated my dad poorly before he passed away and raised my brother to be such a mess. One last thing, I'm going to marry Miss Williams, the lawyer, soon. She told me in confidence that she felt attracted to me after I saved her from my brother's violent behavior. She's a bit on the serious side, but I really love her for her kindness and dependability. From here on, I aim to work hard and be like my dad, building a warm and loving home. My name is Daniel, and my parents passed away in a car accident during the winter of my 3rd year in junior high. At that time, my younger brother John had just started elementary school and couldn't manage without help. Our relatives were compassionate and shared in our grief. However, their own circumstances made it impossible for them to take in both a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old. Essentially, we had no one to rely on. I had planned to go to high school, but I gave that up to start working. I became a construction worker at a local company in the spring. While my classmates attended high school and enjoyed their youth, I worked from morning till evening, sweating it out. It was tough, and those unaware of my situation often assumed I had poor academic abilities or bad conduct, which made me feel miserable at times. But raising and caring for my little brother was more important. I didn't want him to feel lonely. I wanted him to live as normally as possible. So I worked hard every day, doing house chores, even though I wasn't used to them, and helping him with his studies at night. Thanks to that effort, John grew up to be a studious and hardworking young man, progressing smoothly from middle school to high school, then to university, and eventually getting a job. He is intelligent and diligent, the pride of my life. When John went to college, a relative who helped him financially said, "It's because of you, Daniel, your hard work that John grew up so well." I was prouder than ever. One day, my adorable younger brother brought his girlfriend home. She was the daughter of a large company, well-mannered and smart. Although I wouldn't use the term mismatched social status nowadays, given our circumstances, their relationship felt exactly like that. John was clearly smitten, but I felt intimidated by her refined aura. Moreover, we never had much female company in our house, so I had no experience entertaining women, which made me very nervous. Despite my nerves, it seemed worth it. His girlfriend appreciated our hospitality and treated me kindly, acknowledging me as her boyfriend's brother. I envied him for having such a wonderful person as his future wife and wanted them to be absolutely happy. I want to cherish my sister-in-law as much as him, at least at first. Since then, John's girlfriend had visited our house several times. Although she seemed uncomfortable in our small house, she behaved cheerfully most of the time. I was happy to think she was getting used to our home. When it was decided that they were to get married, I felt even more relieved and delighted. However, one Sunday, just about a week before the wedding, I received a call from John's girlfriend. Even over the phone, her voice sounded very different from when she was with him, and she was clearly upset. "Brother-in-law, about John's and my wedding next week, could you not attend?" "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised. "Well, you see, my family has a fair bit of stature. I can understand John being there because he's brilliant and handsome, regardless of his background. But for someone like you, Daniel, who lacks educational and professional credentials, to be part of our family is a bit troubling. Let's say it's not just about me. I can't put my parents through the embarrassment or discomfort." She spoke clearly, not mincing words. John had told me he liked her straightforward personality, but to me, it was just cruel. I understood that legally, you can't sever the ties of brotherhood, so I gave up on that. But at the very least, I would like to pretend you don't exist. All I'm asking is for you to not attend the wedding and not be present at family gatherings. Can you do that for the sake of John's and my bright future? Regardless of how she felt, I couldn't deny her words when she said it was for John's bright future. After all, I had lived my life up until now for his happiness. I couldn't go against that, even if it meant missing his big day. I understand your point. I've lived long enough to have been told about my lack of education and career credentials. If my absence will benefit John and you, I will not attend the ceremony. Is that okay? Yes, I really appreciate it, she said. As soon as I confirmed my absence, her mood seemed to brighten. She said goodbye in the cheerful voice I was familiar with and hung up the phone. After the call, I felt a wave of exhaustion and slumped onto the floor. Though I had agreed, it didn't mean I wasn't upset. It was painful to know that someone who was about to become family thought of me in such a way. The most painful part was not being able to attend John's wedding. I had wanted to bring our parents' portraits and celebrate with the four of us as a family. But I couldn't deny it. The truth was that my academic abilities were not strong, and my employment history wasn't impressive. It had been my own decision to give up on pursuing higher education, so the one to blame was me. I was the one dampening his new beginning, casting a shadow over his important milestone. I fell into deep self-loathing and spent the day feeling depressed, unable to focus on anything. When John returned home after work, he shared various things about the wedding reception, honeymoon, and their future life. However, due to what his fiancée had said earlier, I found it difficult to respond meaningfully or engage in the conversation. "Daniel, what's wrong? Are you feeling ill?" John looked at me worriedly, but I didn't know how to respond. I'm not particularly bright, and I'm bad at lying. In times like these, I usually speak up, but I didn't want to say anything bad about the woman who was about to become his wife. However, if he were to say the same thing as her, I could accept it and graciously decline attending the wedding. Realizing the importance of my relationship with him, I mustered the courage to be honest and share all my feelings and thoughts, even though I knew it might make him dislike me. "Your fiancée told me that someone who can't exactly boast a life to be proud of shouldn't attend your wedding. She said if you feel the same way, just tell me outright. The most painful thing for me is to be a burden to you. If you don't want me to attend, I'll gladly comply." With a voice seething with anger from the core of his being, John said, "You really think I would say something like that? There's no way I could think something so cruel about the only family I have." After roaring those words, John calmed down a bit. Then, with a look as if he had just thought of something, he said, "Daniel, how about not coming to the wedding just as she said? Please, I'd like you to wait for me at home. Is that okay?" "Wait, what do you mean?" The words were quite shocking, but I understood from John's subsequent explanation that there was some thought behind it. "There's no need to show up to a celebration involving someone who says such terrible things, Daniel." On the wedding day, although I was told not to come, I was still worried. To my brother, I was the only person he could call family. I couldn't help but worry if there were any issues or disputes during the family gathering. So, I got dressed in my brother's suit and secretly went to the venue. It was strangely quiet at my younger brother's place. I approached one of the staff members who seemed troubled and asked, "Sorry for being late, but how far has the ceremony progressed?" The staff member replied, "We can't start the ceremony because none of the groom's family has arrived yet." What? I was led to John's dressing room and asked him, "John, our uncles haven't arrived." "That's right, Daniel," he replied. "I told them not to come." "Why did you suddenly tell them not to come?" I asked, confused. "If I told our uncles and aunts what you've been told, they'd say, well, we're the shameful relatives who couldn't help when you needed, so they wouldn't attend the ceremony. That's why nobody's coming today. I just thought I'd eat the food and go back. It's a waste otherwise." "That's completely outrageous." I couldn't hide my shock. Why would the entire family go to such lengths to make things difficult? It was supposed to be a day of celebration for you. What could have possibly led them to such a decision? Seeing my distress, John reassured me. "I loved her, but I can't forgive her for what she said to you. My proud uncles in our family feel the same way. If she can't consider you as family, I can't be part of hers. I'm thinking of breaking off the engagement." Just as John finished speaking, a woman burst into the room. It was John's fiancée, still in her bridal gown. "How long are you going to keep me waiting? We're already past the start time," she said, agitated. John replied calmly, "At the very least, none of my family will be coming. Daniel here didn't come for the wedding. He's just here to see me. Let's just have our meal and call it a day. As for you and me, we can't get married. I'd like to say this engagement never happened." "That's impossible. You can't just cancel the wedding at the last minute like this," she exclaimed, her face turning red with embarrassment and anger. John's response was cold. "You seem to have said some pretty terrible things to him. Remember the family issues we discussed before? Knowing all that, you decided to say something that would upset him while I wasn't around. At first, I was surprised at how low you could stoop, but then I realized you're exactly the type to do something like this. You only see people based on their achievements, don't you? Unfortunately, I'm also what you'd call a failure, raised by another failure. So, I can't marry a woman who doesn't care about my family." She burst into tears. "I'm just telling the truth. I can't introduce a family where the husband's family consists of only high school dropouts working in construction. How shameful." I asked myself if I could remain silent after being talked to like that. John defended me and sided with me, and if I kept my silence, it would make him look foolish. This was an issue between her and me. While she might be right, I have lived my life doing my best. It hurts when someone who knows nothing about me looks down on me. Yes, I might not be the brightest and I have no prestigious credentials, but even without such things, I have lived my life strongly to protect my precious family. You have no right to deny my way of life." With her hysterical crying and my loud voice, her family and the venue staff began to gather. Inadvertently, everyone heard her offensive words. Her parents, figuring out what was happening through her words, began to bow their heads to my brother and me. "And here I thought you finally found a man to marry, and you start saying such things. I thought I could finally relax, thinking you were going to move out." Her father, his head in his hands, scolded her. "We deeply apologize. It's partly her fault for spoiling her too much. We sincerely apologize and hope you can forgive her," her mother said, despite wearing a beautiful dress with a shamefaced, apologetic expression. Even her friends who were attending the wedding seemed to have had enough of her offensive remarks about the groom's family. No one came to her defense or interfered. The attendees just stared at her in disbelief. Even she, usually so glib, was left speechless. Perhaps she finally realized the reactions her words were causing, or maybe she finally understood the disastrous situation she had created. "I was 7 when our parents died," John began. "My older brother, who started working as soon as he finished middle school, has been sacrificing so much for me. His life isn't something that just anyone can emulate, and even if I were in the same position, I don't think I could have done it. Even if one has a good education, it doesn't guarantee they can live that way. I knew this even when I was 7, but you couldn't understand that. You're less mature than a 7-year-old. I can't marry a child, and I don't want to. So, I'm breaking off our engagement. I don't want to see you anymore." After saying this, John apologized to her parents for the abrupt cancellation and then to the staff. Though he apologized very respectfully and humbly, it was also a clear statement that he had no intention of changing his stance. She who had ruined one of life's biggest turning points, her wedding, through her own actions, stared blankly at the aftermath. You have a family who scolds and protects you in times like these, right? John continued. My younger brother, too, when he heard about our phone call, was angrier than me. While educational background and work history are certainly important, for me, he is far more important than any of those things. So knowing he outright refused to marry someone like you, I'm a little relieved now. She cried again. It was probably the only thing she could do. And so the wedding ceremony was canceled before it could even begin. Afterward, John really did break off the engagement with her. Since they hadn't submitted their marriage license yet, there were no procedures to take care of, and he quickly cut ties with her. Later, some attendee disseminated photos of the scene online, and it seems that she and her family lost their standing to get work because of this. She probably won't be able to date or marry for a while. It's probably good medicine for someone who was so arrogant. John says that she took care of the entire cost of the wedding cancellation. Of course, it's only right since she was the one who caused this mess, and we, the victims, don't need to worry about it. I'm grateful to him. I don't know anyone else who would get so angry for me, not just because we're family, but because he respects me as a person. Although this wasn't the ideal circumstance, I got to learn this again. After this incident, it feels like our bond as brothers has deepened even more. I'm really proud of John, whom I've raised with care, even though we don't have parents, for growing into such a fine person. Encouraged by him, I started studying for my high school equivalency exam, something I'd been contemplating for a while. A year later, I passed the exam and switched jobs. It's a completely different field from what I was doing, but learning something new is fun. While working hard, I got my first girlfriend. Of course, she's a woman who values me and my precious family. I plan to invite her over and introduce her to John soon. I want to brag about my wonderful younger brother.